session, but not at any other time. The meeting is being filmed, and by being present, attendees are deemed to have agreed to be filmed and to the use of those images and sound recordings. Attendees should not disclose any personal information of individuals, as this would infringe the data protection rights of that individual. And may I please ask everyone to mute their microphones when not speaking. So item 1, apologies for absence. We have one from Councillor Woodhead, I believe, don't we? Or is he not a member of it? Anyway, maybe, oh, he's a member. I think we got one from Councillor Woodhead, didn't we? Yeah. Yeah. Any others? No. Declarations of interest. To receive statutory declarations of interest from members in relation to disclosable pecuniary interests and non-pecuniary interests. Any disclosure of interest in any agenda item? No. Chairman's announcements. I don't think I've really got any announcements, actually. Public open session. So do we have any members of the public? There are no members of, who's that? Oh, Grant. Just in time for the public open session, Grant, were you wanting to say anything?
Yes, please.
Oh, right.
Yes, can't remember which item it was. It's on Stratton Way Cemetery, first of all. So, firstly,
Right, thank you for your comments, Grant. Catherine, do we have any members of the public on the Zoom? They don't want to speak. Okay, thank you. Right. Moving on, invited speaker. We don't have one. Members' questions. Do any members have any questions? No. Councillor Skilton.
Just a comment, really, rather a question, just to say thank you to officers and members who got involved with the tiny forest planting. It's the whips are in, and it looks vastly improved to when it was just a hole in the ground, and obviously was causing some concern to residents. I think it's looking good, and I know there was a lot of correspondence going around on that, and officers were a bit deluged with emails and things. So I just want to say thank you to Harry and Ian and the team and Karim.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Skilton. Any other questions? No. Minutes and recommendations of the meeting. Now we have the minutes here, so look at them first for accuracy. Page 1, any comments? Page 2, comments? Page 3, in other words, page 7. Page 8, it has been pointed out there's a typo in the second line, that it should be for the heads of terms lease to come from CBC to council, not leaves or leave. That's just a typographical error. Any other comments on that on this page? No. Right. Matters arising. Item 8. Matters arising. Page 5. Any matters arising? No. Page 6. Page 7. Councillor Foster.
Could I just ask whether the letter of gratitude, sorry, in relation to whether 9B, the letter was sent to Hendon on my behalf. I haven't seen the letter directly, so I apologize for that, but I just want to know that that's been sent.
Can you, Karim? Yes. Do you have an answer?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So officers have emailed gratitude to the officers, the individuals concerned at that at Hendon Cemetery. We've also been in telephonic contact with them to thank them as well. What we have not done is specifically write a letter as such, so we can do that. If that's, we're also keeping the dialogue open with them as well at the same time.
Good, thank you. Chief Executive.
Just to reiterate, as work colleagues, ex-work colleagues, I've reached out to the three of them and said thank you very much. We appreciate your efforts, and it's nice that we've got that resource going forward as well if we need to take advantage of it, which I think we will. And
okay, thank you.
Fine. Thank you.
Councillor Strawn.
Just my observation on that, it was agreed that we would send a letter and put the Mayor's name, and personally I don't feel necessarily an email from officers in that respect is appropriate. I think it should actually have something signed by the Mayor. I think it's far better. These officers at Hendon gave a great service to us, so I think it's only right that we actually formally recognise it through the councillors, not just through officers.
Right, okay. Any other matters arising on page 7? Matters arising page 8. Councillor Strawn.
2 points. At the very top of the page, have the senior officers and directors escalated the matter to CBC, and what is the response?
So I can confirm that we wrote to CBC, or rather I wrote to CBC to escalate the matter. I have not had a response.
In that respect, perhaps a member of public present tonight could raise it in his wearing his other hat.
Perhaps I could take the opportunity of talking to that member of the public in a minute about it.
Right, thank you. Oh, Councillor, did you have another point, Councillor?
Yes, on the 12A, reaching out to local residents with regard to the Bowls Club, has that occurred, or where are we on that, please?
I think that's on the agenda, isn't it? An update on the...
So if I may,
sorry, okay, carry on.
Thanks, Chairman. So a first draft of the question set for that survey has now been done by officers. It's going to be reviewed and shared with the chair of the PLOS committee and deputy chair in terms of its fit for purposeness, if you like, on the specific objectives in mind, and then it'll be sent out with a view, I think, with a deadline for response, and then chasing up, I suppose, as well by mid-May. And that's going to be in sequence, if you like, with the other survey that we have out there for the Orchard Centre. That's why.
Thank you.
Yes, please, Peter.
Just quickly, I just wanted to add that there's been a variety of kind of stakeholder engagement of late, particularly in regard to the broad community that uses the Orchard Centre and also the individual people who actually physically use it as well. So there's been a lot of community engagement of late, and this will complement that in a slightly different direction. But it's good that we're reaching out and listening to the residents of the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other matters arising? Where are we? Matters arising, page 8. Any other? No, I don't think so. Right, moving on. 9 items for consideration. So 9A, Playfield Close report. You will have read the paper. Harry, would you like to make a few comments about that? Or Karim? Yes.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So just to advise members that officers, as recently as today, have been on the phone with and email with the insurers who are still considering which of the 2 corrective measures to take. Should it be the smaller patch at, I think, about £850 cost of repair, or redoing the complete ground rubberized surfacing at just over £3,000? I think officers prefer the latter, but we'll see. See the response soon.
So we're in negotiation with the insurers, and we hope that it will be the latter, because that's the more sensible option.
Okay, does anybody have any comments or questions? Councillor Strawn.
Thank you, Chairman. I noted at Appendix A, and it had been helpful. It's only one sheet of paper if it was actually presented to the meeting, so that people are not relying on those with laptops, etc., to access it. But if I understood it correctly, the total of the quote was actually options 1 and 2 added together, not just option 1 or option 2. If I've done my calculations correctly, that it shows as double, and I would certainly expect this to be met from insurance before we come to a final decision. So I'm glad we're talking to the insurers, and hopefully we will agree the better option.
Do you wish to comment on it? Was it a question?
Just to agree with members, absolutely right. We are pushing for the slightly more expensive option to make sure that it's done once properly. Yeah. Let you know soon.
Councillor Jones.
Thank you. I'm happy to propose we note the report. There's just 2 queries I have. For clarification, in the quote where it says turf available at additional cost, was that part of the damage at all and therefore required to be included as part of the insurance claim? And then the other question was around, would a patch repair affect safety in any way? I'm struggling to understand why we wouldn't look at it as a visible whole. We should do all we can to put it right, exactly as you said, in one go. Done.
The patch repair wouldn't be guaranteed 100%. I think over time it would become weak again. So I think the best option all round would be to go for the full repair of the surface.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Foster.
I think what I'm sensing here is that the negotiations with the insurance company need to progress, but I'm sensing from members that we need to do the right thing and make the right decision for the safety and the longevity of the facility. So I'm not suggesting we take the lower amount and then build it up necessarily from counter reserves, but I think that may be something we might need to consider if the negotiations with the insurance company don't go ahead don't progress the way that we hope.
Right, can that be noted then, Peter, as a sort of option if that is the way it turns out, to be brought back possibly to a council meeting then, yeah, if that is necessary. Any other comments on Playfield Close? No, right, moving on. B, Stratton Way Cemetery Project Report. Would you like to talk about this, Peter or Karim? Or Harry?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chairman. As of today, we met on site with the landscape designer to commission, to obviously follow the process to commission a landscape drawing for the cemetery. So tomorrow, He will give us a costing for that, and obviously we'll follow the process for that. And we've also been trying to identify, obviously types of trees and monuments and things and benches and all that we want to try and incorporate into the cemetery. So basically everything's in the report, and then we'll come back at a later date with another report once we have the landscape drawing in place.
Do you want to add to that, Karim? Do you want to add to that?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just really briefly, the members obviously can ask questions. Just to say again, obviously, cognizance of what Councillor Fage has said from the gallery as such, that we are, the next report, as Harry said, which is going to be coming to a next meeting, will include a subdivision, if you like, or an allocation between PWLB and grants as well, which we can then source, be it on greenery, on furniture and other items. Also timelined for the year to see what's still open and available to us.
Okay, Peter, did you have something? Yes, okay. Yes. Councillor James. Yes.
Thank you. Before we, and rightly so, get into this discussion on the PWLB piece, I just have a few things. So first of all, thank you for all the work gone into it. Super helpful. It said that the report included an updated drawing, but I couldn't find it anywhere online. So hopefully I wasn't being a bit technologically challenged, but it'd be good to see it, I think, before anything moves forward. I have a really silly thing, and it's only because it happened on my patio this weekend, right? Cherry trees throughout, berries when they drop. Did you mean cherry blossom? Because if somebody orders the wrong thing, because when berries drop on the patio, my beautiful patio is now stained from my blackberries that dropped. So I know that's really silly, but just as a heads up, if that's something. The other thing was about the pavement edge memorials along the paths. We're talking about footpaths, we're not talking about the roads, right? Yeah, okay, just making sure. Councillor Skilton spoke about drainage in January following some excessive rain we'd had. Has that been built into this at all?
Yeah, we're going to explore the drainage as well as part of the whole project.
Okay, thank you. I just didn't understand it there. And then I think actually building again, we'll go into the PWLB stuff, I know, but just the plot specs, like specifications, thinking about again what Councillor Fage said, have they in the updated plan, have there been things put in place to make sure that they're fairly apportioned, etc.?
If I may, thanks. Thanks on that last point, picking up also from Councillor Fage's point regarding this. So yes, but there's going to be there is a separate strand of work which we are initiating on the policy, if you like, for burials, and that will have kind of eventually have a kind of a set of proper drawings with zones, if you like, for the process, so everyone will understand at first glance almost what goes where and
what's
how.
right, what that's okay, amazing. Thank you.
Did you have a comment, Peter? Okay, Councillor Foster.
Okay, so we've taken a few stabs at this, haven't we? We've tried seen various iterations. I think what we're aiming to do here, particularly at Stratton Way, is to improve the aesthetic, for want of a better way of putting it, so that it feels a little bit more of an attractive area. So it's more relaxing, and I think currently it feels like a field with graves in. And what our ambition here really should be is to improve what it looks and feels like. Taking on board sort of feedback around how we should be spending the money, and that's important. But there are certain things that when we've reviewed this, without being too sort of financial around it, if we spend money, there'll be some options that will be beneficial for the council's finance, because there's things that can be sold as well. So it's not just about spending money, but I think we've got to have in mind here that we're trying to improve what it looks like as well there. So I fully agree with some of the comments around spending. Not all of this should come from public works loan, but some of this stuff quite clearly could be, but we need to build in perhaps for next year's budget what other elements for Stratton Way that might be needed. So I think it would be helpful to have when a future report comes, to have even more images, and we spoke, Harry, before about sort of give members as many images as you can to make it clear what it's going to look like in terms of your ambitions. I know that having the designer to bring us something forward, that's important. And we just need to be careful that we're doing the right thing. I mean, when you look at the numbers here, 35,000 for contractors' fees. I think members will be keen to understand what that looks like, given with a budget of £22,000 for the two roundabouts on top of that. So I think we probably need to have some understanding of it, and some of it will need to be maybe dealt with in a different way rather than public works. And I know that's what you're saying, but I just wanted to make sure we're clear in our own minds what we're aiming to do here.
Councillor Strong.
Rather echoing other members' comments and indeed the comments of Councillor Fage, I think it's important, as Chairman of Finance, I would be reluctant to enter into any long-term loan commitment for projects or items that were not going to last a period. We've already, I think, established that principle with regard to our Public Work Loan Board on the recreation grounds, where we've taken into account the length of life of some of the equipment. I would hope officers would take that on board when coming back to this committee with their recommendations. And I think, as Councillor Foster just mentioned, it's important that we have an idea of the ongoing running costs of replacement, because some of the plants, I imagine, may need to be replaced on an annual basis. So that would need to be built into an annual budget rather than as a capital project. So I hope that, looking at the principle, and I do have concerns over some of the figures in here as to, such as contractors' fees, as to how it's being calculated. But I think we've got to bear in mind, we want to produce something that is welcoming for the families that attend there at a very sad time and in remembrance. But equally, we've got to look at making sure that we do it on a sound financial basis running into the future, so that we don't spend a lot of money now and then find we've created something that it becomes a burden for the future of the town. So I think it's got to be looked at on how we fund it initially to get it up to standard, but then making sure that we've got a plan in place for the future.
Thank you, Councillor Strong. Councillor Knight.
Thank you. So I'll try not to repeat what others have said, but I broadly agree with the comments around caution around the use of PWLB, and note that interest rates are quite high. I think when we were looking at the budget and longer term planning for PWLB, we earmarked around 100,000 for this initiative. So this is 125,000. So it's worrying it's gone up by 25% in just a few months. But of course, there is an opportunity to make a more pleasant environment. And I think there is value in some of the memorial elements. But I think to justify that, and I know it's difficult when you're considering a place of rest, but it's probably worth thinking about the business case and the business plan, and therefore the potential revenue that could be obtained from those new memorial items that we install. And I think if we understood that element of it, it would be easier to understand the investment. Because we could see the return. So perhaps I'll have a go at making a proposal, because I think it's quite helpful if we provide quite clear guidance as a committee. So I propose that we ask officers to come forward with a drawing and a very light touch business case for how the new assets potentially could be used. The officers seek alternative funding options and make the point that generally this committee does not support the use of PWLB for plants.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Peter, do you have any comments to make at this stage, just to clarify a few things, maybe?
All I was going to say was, I see this as a kind of position in time document. It's not the end of the journey. It's a kind of where we are at the moment and treading water. It needs to come alive. And one of the ways it can come alive is to have a proper professional technical understanding of what's going to go where, what sections are going to go where, and it needs to come alive from that perspective. I agree with the ward councillor's comments connected to the fact that we need to be careful and thoughtful about our capital borrowing, and you would only invest monies if those monies can stay with you over that 25-year period and are on our capital assets to the council, and not revenue items that can in effect end their life in shorter periods. And also going back to what Councillor Knight was saying, there's a balance here between expenditure to focus on the proper development and transformation of the site, which is what Councillor Foster was saying, but there are other consequences associated with this. Our offer will change as a council, and the community can take advantage of that. And then there needs to be a business case associated with that then can justify the expenditure and investment. So it's a position in time. At the moment, it's kind of without being disrespectful, it's a list of things. It needs to become much more so that you can visualize what the changes need to happen. And I would agree what Councillor Foster said, because obviously you visited with us. It doesn't feel as kind of as harmonious as our Victorian one. It doesn't feel the same character, doesn't seem to be there. And we need to aim towards trying to do that.
Yeah. One comment I would make is we should pursue the idea of getting grants that Councillor Fage mentioned earlier. We should make sure we're on top of that. Any further comments, Councillor Thomas?
Yes, the old cemetery has a nice big building in the middle, but it's still essentially a field. Now, I'd like to see Stratton Way look better, but I think there's ways of doing it. And also, when we do beautification jobs, we tend not to cost the time and effort of the council staff. That tends to go unnoticed, and then we lose sight of other jobs that are supposed to get done, which is what happened with Franklin's, I think. So we need to be cognizant of that, and there are ways of making things look nice without spending loads of money on it. So I think we've gone the opposite way, but what you're stating is probably a perfect answer with as much money as we dare even look at. So I think I kind of agree with the way you've approached it, but I think we should pare it back a little bit compared with what we've got now and what we might have. Some of the stuff doesn't need to be last 25 years. Plants and things won't last 25 years. But a couple of plants here and then, some bits and pieces can make it look nicer. And I agree with that.
Yes, please do.
So I won't take up time, but as this report makes it clear, this is just part of a puzzle. There's a number of projects that members are thoughtful about, where back in May, they will come to council, and as an overall package, looking at the Chair of Finance, we need to see things in the round and then understand what our priorities are again and what the costs are associated with this, and then come to a decision on what the borrowing might look like for 25, 26. But it's very, very important to see it in the round.
Thank you, Peter. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you. Well, with that in mind then, could I ask the town clerk to sit down with officers in advance of that May meeting to set out the different borrowing options, if you have knowledge of all the different areas, so that we can plainly see under each topic heading where you expect the various different monies, the potential for them to come from. So instead of having a table like this that indicates that it would all come from PWLB, that it would have Stratton Way Cemetery on top, PWLB requests, alternative fundings and sources where they may come from, to make it really easy for us all to see and learn from your expertise of understanding where we can source that for the future. That would be really helpful, I think.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. That's exactly what I was intending to do in May. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Any other comments? No? Well, we have a motion that has been seconded, a proposal that has been seconded. So all those in favour, please indicate. Against? No, carried. I hope we kept a very careful note of what exactly the proposal was. Good. Right, item C, football pitches infrastructure report. Harry, are you going to talk to us about this?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. The officers have identified remedial works that need to be done on the football pitches to bring them to a better standard going forward. And that's the reason of this report. There will be another report comes to council in due course, with another part of the growth plan we're going to put together for the football pitches. But as we see it at the moment, if we spend this money and carry out this work on the pitches at the moment, we can achieve a better standard going forward. That's what we're looking to do. Yeah.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions. First of all, I note the summary explanation. And we're told in the second paragraph, the town has significant demand for football pitches, so much so that one of its 3 teams trains in Bedford due to pitch shortages. And the immediately following sentence says the town council pitches are underutilised. Now, why is that? If there's a shortage of pitches and we're having people going elsewhere, why on earth are our town current pitches underutilised? The second comment is that I've noticed the works that have been carried out, but I know historically the town council have carried out repairs, particularly to football goal mouths, etc. And it looks to me from this that this actually probably should be included in certainly our next year's annual budget. We should be looking at that kind of maintenance each summer for football goal mouths because they get worn over the period of time. And I know that this committee, when I've been into council in the past, has actually regularly had those goal mouths repaired and remedied. And I'm a bit surprised to find that it's something that seems to be an add-on for this financial year when I'd have expected it being included as a natural part of ground maintenance.
Do you have an answer, just a quick answer to this question of whether it's utilised or not?
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So just in response to Councillor Strawn's point about underutilisation, and that is true, the report isn't as clear as it should have really said. Monday to Friday is underutilised, and it's busier on a Saturday and Sunday. Also, what's not clear from the report is that there is a great potential actually to do a lot more with the pitches, essentially, but that's in terms of, as Harry mentioned, in terms of future growth, to meet the kind of general level of demand across the town for pitches, including our own pitches. Just final point, if I may, on that, as Harry mentioned, we are doing it. We're preparing a report which will cover as many pitches as we can think of across the town, and that's to come in a couple of months, relating again to potentially some of the King's Reach pitches and other areas.
Okay, thank you, Graham. Yes, Councillor Foster.
So to be clear, you've identified, obviously we have the public realm manager, and we've identified with other officers clearly that there has been issues that we need to resolve. I note sort of paragraph 1, so the comments in paragraph 1 will sort of will note that. From what we're saying, there's an amount of money that is needed to bring these football pitches to a standard that is, I wouldn't say acceptable, to improve the standards so that we might then be able to attract more teams to use them. So the point about the pitches being underutilised makes sense if they're not attractive enough to be played upon. So to my mind, that whilst I agree with the principle of why is this coming forward now when we've had a budget process, I think that's been sort of partially addressed in paragraph 1. So if the clerk is minded to make this form of investment, and it's come through as a report, I think it's one of those. I think probably we should be supporting it, especially as there is the demand for pitches that are perhaps not at a standard that they need to be. So for me, I think we should do this.
Well, is that a formal proposal, Councillor Foster?
I'm going to wait for other people to comment before.
All right, okay. Councillor Strawn.
I was going to second that if it had been a formal proposal.
If members, I'm happy that essentially we should do this. So the proposal is then let's go ahead.
Right, to agree with the recommendation, and Councillor Strawn is seconding it, right?
I'm seconding that, and I think on the basis that we will actually get greater use from the pitches, and therefore we will generate greater income, which will reduce the impact on the general reserve because of that increase in income. So I'm more than happy to second that proposal.
Right, thank you, Councillor. Any other comments on this? Councillor Skilton.
Yeah, sorry, just so it's clear in my mind. So are we also agreeing to continue with a sort of an enhanced maintenance regime, sort of with the supplies listed below at a reduced cost, I think is the wording in the report? And what have we been doing previously why the change in maintenance sort of all of a sudden, really, just kind of what I wanted to get clear in my mind.
Is there a quick answer to that one, Karen? Well, as quick as you can make it.
So I think as part of business as usual this is a very general response, by the way, so that's the only caveat I'll give. Traditionally, public realm team have been certainly mowing when they needed to seasonally, and the pitches and doing the white lines essentially. When it came to gold mouths, less so, and therefore we've reached the position now where we've taken stock, if you like, and hence the report right now. Going forward, clearly we'll be doing more.
I think that there's the opportunity for investment has been highlighted. At the point in time, it wasn't considered to be something that we were able to do. I think there is an opportunity to bring it up to a different level of specification that would increase the usage and might also enable teams who aren't just interested amateurs, but people who play more on a regular basis and perhaps might also be able to do it at weekends. But there seems to be a journey here towards making it a much, much better offer. Yeah. That might be more consistent with the FA's approach connected to good husbandry.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Knight.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to support this proposal, and I think it's a good idea. However, there's always a but. The report mentions that the pitches are underutilised. So I guess I'm thinking, okay, so if we're going to call this an investment, we're expecting the utilisation to increase. So can we measure that? So what is the utilisation today? And when we've spent this money, we need to be able to look in a year's time, in 2 years' time, and see what the utilisation is then. And in support of this, if we're going to improve them, we need to tell people we're improving them or they won't know. So we need to think about a marketing plan for how we try to increase that utilisation, and hopefully have a report that comes back to PLOS in a season's time and says actually utilisation has increased. So is that something officers are happy to take on board, please?
Can you do that?
I think they're all extremely credible recommendations, and the answer is yes. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Councillor Jones.
And then I suppose just to build on that, and I appreciate that your answer to the question about looking after it was very brief. I get that, so I'm not asking you to go into too much detail, but I think you raised the question in my mind as our public realm team got enough time and resource, and can we upskill them to the right level to be able to do all the new bits we're asking them to? Again, that brings me back to the time and resource piece, and who will train them?
Yeah, during my role coming into the council as a public realm manager, I've identified the skills and resources that we have, and we absolutely have all the skills required to carry out this work. And anybody that's has a shortcoming in any of the works that we've got to carry out, I'll make sure that they're trained properly. They'll be absolutely fine. I have no worries about that. And doing this, just to follow on what everybody's said, all members have said, well, this work will enhance the football pitches and it will increase the usage going forward. Absolutely, I've no doubts about that.
Right, thank you for that. Any other comments on this?
Can I just go back just to say, on top of everything else we're putting on, they've still got the time. So I appreciate we've got the, but just making sure we're not stretching them so thin that we're just chasing our tails every single week, especially during the summer months and the football season.
In response to that, I'd just like to say, obviously, it'll be done through the football season have ended. So we're not carrying out white lining or things like that. So we can release resources to carry out this work. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments? Okay, well, we have a proposal which has been seconded. All those in favour? Against? None. Carried unanimously that we go ahead, that we approve the recommendation here. Right, next item on the agenda. Jubilee Recreation Ground, an oral update from the Head of Governance and Strategic Partnerships. Karim.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So as briefly as I can, there'll be a written report coming to the Town Council at the end of the consultation period, which started, well, let's say today, all up for Jubilee, all the way through to the end of April. I can, in terms of update, I can say now that the 600 trees for the tiny forest were planted. The fencing has been completed around that area. The benches have been installed, and all the groundwork has been bark mulched over. There's been a sign put in place as well, covering the with a QR code on there, covering the project. So in terms of self-contained area, it is now complete. I'm happy to report so that there's been close to zero or no visible aspects of signs of vandalism either on that area. So far so good. I think tomorrow afternoon, just project ahead a little if I may, officers and some members as well who have been invited will be attending the site between, I think it's 2 and 4:30 p.m. With a gazebo in case the elements are unkind to us, to listen to the public, both on if they wish to talk to us about the tiny forest, so be it, it's fine, but also it's primarily around where and what the pathway should look like, connecting the fence line, if you like, to tiny forest, and then the existing path, and then secondly also to discuss whether or not there should be a 2.5 metre opening put into that metal palisade fencing. Another thing to say, we've had letter drops done of our leaflets, which was approved by members, to various aspects beyond the initial leaflet drop that we did. We did that a week or so ago, I think, as it happened just before Easter, in fact, and that also specifically covers the housing area, the housing development, which the pathway, I think it's Cheeks Meadow, I think it's called, which comes right up to the palisade fencing already. So that's also looking at the other side of the fence as well. And of course, we'll take the rest of this month to digest the results and come back to you with a report.
Right, thank you. Any comments, Councillor Thomas?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment as Councillor Skilton did earlier about the work done on the forest. It was good event, great fun, and hopefully it'll benefit the environment and the community in the future. Just a question about the benches. One of them was a bit loose and wobbly. Did that get looked at? If not, can we look at it tomorrow when we're there?
I'll contact the landscaper tomorrow morning first thing, and see if we can get that looked at for you.
Yeah, because I think the demonstration of the fact it was loose didn't help. But never mind. Okay, thank you.
Right, thank you. Any other comments or questions about this? Councillor Skilton.
So the consultation period is now open. It's my understanding that members of PLOS would get to see the wording of the consultation before that went out. So what form is the consultation taking at the moment?
Yeah, well, please,
thank you. Thanks, Chairman. So it's my understanding was, forgive me if it hadn't reached you, Councillor Skilton, but I thought members were involved in that, in the final, the okay, go ahead to the all clear, if you like, to send it out. I think in terms of the responses, they come about via email and via the website. Indeed, if you want to write to us on a letter format, they can as well. It's on there.
Okay, thank you. I might have missed that email. I'll go and double check that.
Right, thank you. Councillor Strawn.
In view of the meetings up on site, with members of the public having the opportunity to come along and make observations, in view of a number of the comments that have been made by the public on law and order grounds, for want of a better description, have the local police and in particular PCSO been advised of this, and have they been given the opportunity to attend that consultation with you?
Yeah, I can tell Councillor Strawn that the police will be present. And I think the community development officers as well. Yeah.
Thanks very much. Well done for getting that organised.
Thank you. Councillor Knight.
Thank you. So I think the consultation is really good, and thank you for the work that's been done on the Jubilee Recreation Ground. So in terms of the consultation, I received an email on the 27th of March from one of the officers. Unfortunately, I was BCC'd, so I can't see who else received it, but it was a draft of the leaflet that was distributed. I did comment on the draft, and because I live nearby, I've now received the actual leaflet, which does incorporate the change I suggested. But I note members haven't been sent the final leaflet that was distributed. At least if they have, I haven't received it. So apart from through the door.
Okay, we will check that after the meeting and make sure it's circulated to everybody. I'm surprised to hear that. Thank you.
Okay.
I didn't get it either. I've got the previous one, but no changes.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Thomas. All right, any other comments or questions on this? No? I don't think there's no decision point, is there, on this? So we will move on. Kitelands report, an oral update again on what's going on with what the state of affairs is with the Kitelands project. Terry.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So as briefly as I can, following the last town council meeting we had on this point, which resolved to enable officers to go out and go back to the supplier, officers have done just that. A full CAT scan for the complete area, all of Kitelands, has now been done. I repeat, all of Kitelands. There's a short report which was pulled together from the people who did that work, with some photos and whatnot, and that gave the all clear to the three, specifically locations 1, 2 and 3, which had been previously reported to and discussed by members, along with Tritax as well. On that basis, officers determined, with the town clerk as such at that time, to then give the green light for location 1, which was the previous, because it was all clear, to carry on with that activity. So the supplier on, I think it's Monday the 25th of March, came back to the site and continued the work that they were doing, to not just clear, but establish and install the 5 items of new play equipment to that area. That work remains ongoing. It is likely to take at least till the end of this month, if not early May, to complete, upon which time it still requires something like 2 weeks thereafter to be signed off by the external assessor, if you like, for the play equipment. And on the assumption that everything is fine with that, then of course, in the meantime, we'll be planning for a mayoral opening, if you like, of the site, which looks to be in the mid to late May at this, as I said, at this point. One last thing, if I may, also, officers are also sourcing appropriate signage, as in a single sign for that area, which will be done in conjunction with Tritax and members in terms of the form of wording, etc. And that needs to be done. That'll all be within the project cost anyway, and reported to the next town council meeting.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions or comments on this? Councillor Foster.
I think it's just pleasing that we were able to get the scan done as quickly as we did. So thank you to the officers for making that happen. It just means that the project hasn't been delayed as much as we perhaps anticipated. So that really is good news. And given that it sounds like we're looking at having the site ready for end of May, that really is good news, especially for summer holidays, etc. So well done, thank you.
Councillor Strawn.
The observation I've got is that's good news, but I hope that it will be recorded fully in the minutes of this meeting, because as we haven't got a written report, and I'd have hoped that we could have had a written report in view of the timescales that have been mentioned, I think it's important that it is open and the minutes need to be more detailed possibly than if it was just referring to a written report, because it's important for transparency for all members of the council and the public to actually see what has occurred. And I'm afraid I do find it disappointing sometimes. I can understand the difference with the Jubilee Recreation Ground being an oral report in view of the recent events, but when we've got the reports by the 25th of March or something, I'd have hoped that we could have had a written report which would have made the minuting of this meeting possibly easier for the clerk rather than having to listen to that and hopefully pick up everything that was said. So just perhaps for future reference.
Right, thank you. Did you have a comment? Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Swan. Officers are very thoughtful and cognizant of the fact that we try not to do many oral reports if at all possible. Our point of reference is written reports that then can be properly minuted, and that's the preferred approach. Yeah.
Any other comments on this item? Right, moving on. Item F, Brunel play area report. Where are we with that, Karim?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So again, apologies, just a brief oral update on this. However, positive news in the sense that from the last meeting that members resolved upon, officers, an agreement has now been signed with the supplier, the approved supplier, to proceed with ordering the required equipment for the Brunel play area. That was done in consultation with our legal advisors as well, and the order is being placed and is going to take something like 3 months to come through anyway. It should be less than that actually, but at the moment they've told us to expect the worst, so 3 months for delivery of the equipment.
So when does that take us to then? When is 3 months from now, at the beginning of July?
Yes, end of June, beginning of July.
Yeah. Is there any questions on this or any further comments? Okay. So moving on, item G, signage for town-wide capital assets. There is a written report on this, which you will have noticed. So do we have any, would you like to introduce this?
Just briefly, if I may, just a couple of things, Mr. Chairman. So the report sets out largely a stream of work which was done in consultation with members most recently at a meeting, actually funnily enough in the training room, which covered the UK Shared Prosperity Fund application. So it's a wider application, but it included these 4 categories, if you like, of signage for the town. So it's done essentially under the CBC portion or allocated funds, not necessarily the town council's own general budget, subject to obviously being approved shortly, we understand actually. The other thing to add in is this is not an exhaustive list. There will be invariably other items or other classifications beyond the 4 categories, including things like football pitches or other areas, leisure areas, if you like, around town. So by all means, those would need to be considered using our own budget in due course via another report to come. But this is just a kind of update essentially of what we've already asked for. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any comments or questions? Councillor Foster.
Yeah, I know we discussed this at PLOS previously, and it was something that was, there was a motion, I think, in relation to it. What struck me when I first viewed the report is it feels a bit more TCM rather than PLOS. Given the sort of the content of the report, a lot of it around town centre signage, and directional signage. Previously, I think there's a bit of an overlap. Certainly, I think it's fair to say there's an overlap between the two committees. That said, I mean I'm happy with sort of the content and the fact we've been able to source funding from elsewhere, so it doesn't impact on the council's funding as such. What did strike me is the fact that there's the last line in the on page 21, officers have been reviewing 13 car park signs currently in operation at the 6th. So that quite clearly is TCM. It's not PLOS. So yeah. I think we just need to be mindful of that. I know there is an overlap, but does the chair of TCM, is the chair of TCM aware of what's in this report? Would be my question.
Well, yes, you're right. But just to clarify. The issue we discussed at the last PLOS meeting about signage on recreation grounds, playing fields, etc., cemeteries, etc., is a separate issue from this. So, I mean, maybe there is overlap, maybe there isn't, but this is a separate project on the UK SPS. And the signage of assets is a separate thing, which is being worked upon at this moment as we speak, I believe. Thank you. Okay. Councillor Strong.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I've got very similar observations to Councillor Foster in this respect, and I would hope that it's a matter of course. The basis of this report actually should be going to TCM because it has got more TCM to it rather than PLOS in my view. So I think it's only right that it goes to that committee. I'm not going to suggest it also goes to F&GP just to cloud the issue even further on the financing of it. But I do think it's important that it's TCM issue on a lot of these issues rather than, with respect, Chairman, this committee's.
Councillor Knight.
Thank you. Thank you. I agree. It definitely needs to come to TCM. I guess the request I have is that we need to see a plan, I think, for where these signs are going to go. In particular, there's quite a lot of heritage signs here, 20 new signs. It seems a bit odd in the recommendation to say the outcome of the UK SPF application will determine the wording and locations. I would have expected the UK SPF to say yes or no to the funding, but for either this council or Central Beds to choose the wording and the locations. And I think we need to know what that is. So yeah, if maybe that could be in the report that comes to TCM, please, that'd be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have a further comment on that at all? No? Oh, Councillor Skilton.
Hi, yeah, just I hope I'm not already going over what sort of has been sort of discussed around the room, but so this report says on the 30th of January, PLOS committee resolved to accept consideration given to new signage, etc. And that was in relation to parks. And so I just want to make sure that that doesn't fall off the radar, and there will be a separate report coming for new signage at parks. So I know Community Safety Group were very keen to make sure that what you can and can't do in parks was included on new signs and things like that, and sort of considerate dog walkers welcome, that sort of thing, really.
Yeah, I think that's correct, and that yeah, I think there is perhaps an element of confusion here about these things. Yes, Councillor Jones.
I'm going to go against the grain a little bit here. So thank you for putting this together, definitely, to officers. It's really helpful to see what's available and potentially what's needed in one place. But for me, this feels like an excessive use of officers' time when we've got so much already in hand with some of these points on this report. Also, points 2 and 4, for me, feel like a frivolous waste of money at a time where we could be looking at other things in the town that might be more up the priority list, and these become the nice to have. So for me, I'd really rather see things like that put further down the list and more necessity things being taken on first. When you look at everything we want to look at in the future, to me, distinctive totems are lovely to have, but I'd rather there's other things in the town that we look at that are a little bit better equipped first.
Yeah, this has been done already though, hasn't it?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it has been submitted to CBC because of the timeline that we had. This was, I think, the third iteration of the same application. So, yeah.
Because it's quite possible that CBC will take the same view as Councillor Jones and not agree to these things.
Never know.
Any further comments, Councillor Skilton?
Sorry, just to add a little bit of clarification to Councillor Jones, there was a working group, I think, that went through the details of what went in the UK SPF fund, and it is regrettable that it wasn't done at a sort of an evening time, but I think the time constraints were that, but some members did come and have input into that.
Any further comments on this? Right, because it's really it's just a note to the report, because as I say, it has been done already. So we'll see. We're now waiting for the outcome. Do we have any idea when we might get a response to this?
So my understanding was that some senior officers from CBC were meeting with the head of service last Monday. So and we were going to get a response soon after. I'm awaiting that response. But yeah.
So imminently.
It is imminent, I think, yeah.
Okay. All right, moving on. Items for information, there are none. Public open session. Does our member of the public wish to make any further comment?
Yeah, it's not. I don't know. Yeah, that's okay. Don't think we'll hold it. So just one thing which is on the region, so thank you. I'm glad a couple of things scrapping away cemetery. One thing that is coming up, and that is a useful pool of money that I did reference before, and is largely earmarked for outdoor open spaces, recreation activities, etc., is the wind farm. And that panel, I believe, it should be meeting in April sometime. So I did give one suggestion of what the project could be for that. I won't mention it again, for fear of igniting rival bids. But that is another pot of money that hopefully we've already got in one application. But if there is some more money later in the year for some of these activities, that's something else to think about as well. But also happy to help on the grant side at Central Beds if I can.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Finch. Are there any members of the public online? Catherine, who wish to speak? No. Right, well, there's no need to go on with that then. Item 12, exempt items, there are none. So that's it.